makes you see visions, and this is what kills you.
What if the drink you reach for every day, your morning juice, that fizzy soda, or even bottled tea, wasn't just unhealthy, but also made in ways you'd never accept if you saw them yourself, recent research cited in a food safety report, which is the same study Elon Musk once referred to as proof we're being fooled at every sip. Now revealed shocking details. Many beverages are engineered, not natural, built with chemical flavor packs, gas treatments, and even animal-based additives disguised behind healthy marketing. Why does your orange juice taste exactly the same all year when oranges don't grow year-round? Why do sodas stay sparkling and fresh for months, while silently feeding your body sugar levels linked to heart disease and type 2 diabetes? And how many drinks are kept looking perfect by techniques already banned in other countries? The truth is enough to make anyone rethink what's in their glass. Because once you learn how these drinks are really made, you might never see them as refreshing again. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today, we uncover the disturbing secrets hiding in the drinks you trust the most. Let's begin. Number 1. Orange juice. It's funny, isn't it? Oranges aren't hanging from trees all year long, yet that bright carton of orange juice sits in your fridge every season, promising the taste of freshly squeezed sunshine. But have you ever asked yourself how something fresh can survive months in storage without turning bitter or flat? Elon Musk's warning feels like a punchline to a cruel joke when you learn what's really swirling in that glass of golden sweetness. Here's the truth they don't print on the label. The reason orange juice tastes the same every time isn't because it's natural, but because it's engineered. To keep it shelf stable, juice producers squeeze the oranges, strip out the oxygen to prevent spoilage, and store it for months in massive tanks. But that process also sucks out the very thing you love about oranges, the flavor. So how do they bring it back? Enter flavor packs. Chemical cocktails created by the same fragrance companies that make expensive perfumes. The same minds crafting colognes for department store counters are designing the fresh taste of your breakfast juice. One chemical in particular, ethyl butyrate, gives it that familiar, freshly squeezed aroma you love. But that smell is just an illusion. Built in a lab, mixed and matched from orange essence oils broken into parts and stitched back together like some Frankenstein experiment. The result, a taste that doesn't even exist in nature. And here's the kicker. Different brands add different flavor packs, which is why 2 cartons of all-natural juice taste oddly distinct. Natural only if you consider a perfume lab natural. And if that doesn't stop you mid-sip, ask yourself why they don't just admit it. Why hide behind words like not from concentrate when the flavor is literally assembled like a puzzle in a factory? Would you still pour a tall glass for breakfast if the carton said, made with engineered fragrance chemicals? It makes you wonder, if they're this secretive about something as simple as orange juice, what other shortcuts are they taking with the food you trust? Maybe the better option isn't as convenient, and that's exactly why they bet you'll keep buying the carton. But squeezing fresh oranges at home, even if it means a little extra work and a few peels on the counter, is the only way to taste something real. Once you picture those giant storage tanks and perfume-grade chemicals standing in for nature, that morning glass of juice doesn't feel so sunny anymore, does it? Number 2, beer. A cold pint after a long day feels like the simplest, most harmless pleasure in the world, doesn't it? The golden bubbles and the frothy top looks like happiness poured straight into a glass. But what if I told you that some of that beautiful clarity you admire isn't from expert brewing at all, but from fish parts? Sounds ridiculous. Almost like some barroom rumor, but it's not. The secret hiding in many beers is enough to make even lifelong fans put the glass down mid-sip. The ingredient in question is something called isinglass, a type of gelatin made from the swim bladders of fish. Since the 19th century, brewers have used it to filter beer, making it look clear and bright because, let's face it, people drink with their eyes before their taste buds. The funny part is it doesn't affect the flavor or smell one bit. It's purely cosmetic, designed to make your pint look picture perfect. But if a clear beer needs fish guts to look good, how much of what we eat and drink is really about quality, and how much is just a show? And that's where the betrayal stings. How many people, such as vegetarians, people with dietary restrictions, or just those who would rather keep fish where it belongs, on a plate, are unknowingly sipping something processed with animal parts? Labels don't always scream it out, and unless you're the kind who interrogates a bartender before ordering, you'd never know. How would you feel if you found out the beer you've been toasting with for years was filtered through the swim bladder of a fish? Would that second round still taste as good? The industry brushes it off. Of course, claiming it's harmless and tradition, but what else are they calling tradition just to keep us from asking too many questions? Sure, more breweries are slowly switching to plant-based or synthetic alternatives, but it's far from universal. So until then, what are you really getting in that icy pint A refreshing drink or a well-dressed illusion if you want to avoid the mystery? Stick to brands that are transparent about their brewing process, or even better, local craft beers that proudly state they're fish-free. It might take a little digging, maybe even asking the kind of questions that make you feel like that customer, but wouldn't you rather raise a glass knowing exactly what's in it after all? Once you picture fish bladders lurking behind that golden glow, can you really look at a pint the same way again? Number 3, Coca-Cola. Picture this. You've had one of those days that drags every bit of energy out of you, and nothing sounds better than popping open a cold Coca-Cola, hearing that fizz and letting those bubbles wash the stress away. But what if that satisfying sip isn't the harmless little pleasure you've been told it is? Elon Musk's warning about never drinking this again if you knew how it's made is about what this drink quietly does to you every time you crack open a can. Studies have screamed this truth for years, but soda companies drown it out with smiling commercials and shiny red cans. The sugar in Coca-Cola is a heavy dose of fructose, and your body treats it like a sly thief sneaking in through the back door. Unlike other foods that trigger hormones to tell you you're full, fructose switches off that alarm. So, you keep sipping, can after can, without realizing you're piling on liquid calories that don't feel like real food, until your waistline shows you the bill. And here's the cruel twist. Those calories don't just stay on your hips or thighs. They travel deeper, wrapping around your organs as visceral fat, the same dangerous kind that strangles your heart, liver, and pancreas without you even seeing it coming. Even if you look healthy on the outside, that hidden fat builds silently, raising your risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even breast cancer. And let's talk about addiction, because Coca-Cola banks on it. The same areas of your brain that light up with drug cravings spark to life when that sugar hits your system. It's not an accident, it's by design. Soda companies know once your brain gets that hit, you'll keep reaching for another can, just like a gambler pulling a slot machine lever, hoping for the same rush. They sell it as happiness in a bottle, but how happy do you feel when you realize you're hooked, drinking something that's slowly carving away your health? Ask yourself this: if you opened a can and it listed higher risk of heart attack, fat coating your organs, and possible cancer right on the label, would you still take a sip? They won't tell you because they don't have to. Laws let them hide behind refreshment slogans. But you have to wonder, is a few seconds of sweet bubbles worth years of silent damage if you want something fizzy? Maybe it's time to try sparkling water with a squeeze of real lemon, or even chill some herbal tea in the fridge. It might not have the same sugar rush, but at least it won't sit in your belly like a ticking time bomb. After all, once you picture what Coca-Cola really does inside you, that red can may never look as refreshing again. Number 4, packaged bread. Do you ever stop mid-chew and wonder why that soft loaf sitting in your kitchen doesn't grow mold even after a week, while a fresh bakery loaf goes bad faster than milk in the sun? Feels strange, doesn't it? How something that looks so harmless and homey can last unnaturally long, almost like it's been given a second life it shouldn't have. Elon Musk was ripping the curtain wide open on a secret that's been baked into your sandwiches for years without you even blinking. The magic trick that keeps those slices fluffy and fresh long past their natural time is called L-cysteine, and it's not some innocent kitchen ingredient. Most of it is harvested from things you'd never willingly put in your mouth. Human hair, to start with. Real hair, swept off salon floors in China, dumped into vats of acid, broken down, then sent halfway across the world to land in the bread you butter every morning. And if that doesn't twist your stomach, think of this. When hair supplies run low, factories switch to pig bristles, cow horns, even duck feathers, all broken down the same way. Imagine holding a sandwich knowing the softness you're biting into came courtesy of ground up feathers and dissolved animal parts. Makes you wonder, are we eating bread or chewing on what's left from a butcher's broom? And here's the part that stings, almost like a slap to the face. They know exactly what they're feeding you. They count on tired shoppers throwing cheap loaves into carts without a second thought, trusting the bright packaging that screams wholesome. Do you think they'd serve this to their own families if they had to watch the process up close? Why does bread need something made from acid-soaked hair just to sit on a shelf? And if they're willing to sneak this into something as basic as bread, what else are they hiding behind those labels? Sure, buying fresh bakery bread or even baking your own takes more effort. It means slicing it yourself, maybe paying a bit more. But ask yourself this, what's the real cost of ignoring it? Eating a sandwich that might as well be held together with salon sweepings and slaughterhouse scraps is no bargain. Better to hold a warm loaf in your hands, even if it's a little uneven and goes stale faster, than to swallow this factory-made trick. Once you've pictured what's behind that soft crust, can you ever look at a store-bought loaf the same way again? Elon Musk had a point. Some truths stick to you worse than glue. And after hearing this, you might just rethink every bite of toast that touches your coffee from now on. Number 5. Cheese. Have you ever noticed how those shiny bags of shredded cheese make life feel so easy? Toss them into your cart, sprinkle them over pasta, and boom, dinner looks like something out of a TV commercial. But have you ever stopped to wonder why that cheese never clumps? Why it pours so smoothly as if it's been trained to behave Elon Musk's warning hits like a brick when you dig into what's really inside that convenient bag? The secret to that perfect anti-clump magic is wood pulp. Yes, the same cellulose found in paper and sawdust. Suddenly, that silky pile of shredded cheddar feels more like something swept up from a carpenter's floor than a dairy product meant for your plate. And here's where it gets downright insulting. Even if the label screams 100% real Parmesan, chances are you're not getting what you paid for. Castle Cheese, a big name in the business, was slapped with a $500,000 fine for selling pure Parmesan that was stuffed with cellulose and even cheap cheddar. Think about that for a second. They charged you for premium cheese, but handed you a mix that wouldn't even pass an honest taste test in Italy. If they lied about Parmesan, what else are they willing to sneak past you, counting on you to never flip the bag over and read the fine print? But the shock doesn't stop there. It only gets darker when you dig deeper into how most cheeses are made, to turn milk into those creamy curds. Cheesemakers use an enzyme called rennet, which is scraped straight from the stomach lining of young calves or goats. Not just any animals, either. It has to come from babies still nursing on milk, because their stomachs contain the special enzymes needed for curdling. The industry will tell you they don't slaughter calves just for rennet, that it's taken after the animals are killed for meat. But does that really make it easier to swallow? Picture this the next time you reach for that fancy cheese board? A young calf's stomach lining is being scraped clean just so we can spread something gourmet on crackers. Still sound appetizing. There are plant-based and lab-made rennet options, but here's the twist that feels like a punchline to a bad joke. The FDA doesn't require cheese companies to tell you which kind they used. So, you could be eating cheese made with vegetable enzymes, or one made from a calf that never even got to grow past the nursing stage, and you'd have no clue, and they like it that way. Because if you really knew, would you still pile it on your pizza, or melt it into your grilled sandwich? The safer bet, grab a solid block, shred it yourself, and at least you'll know what you're eating. Maybe it takes a little more time, maybe it's not as quick to sprinkle, but better that than paying for wood pulp and baby calf enzymes pretending to be cheese. How many more shortcuts in your kitchen are built on secrets you'd never agree to if you actually saw the truth? Number 6. Instant noodles. They sit on store shelves like loyal friends, stacked high in bright, cheerful cups, promising a hot, comforting meal in just a few minutes. Cheap, easy, and filling instant noodles feel like a blessing for anyone stretched thin on time or money. A boiling pot, a packet of seasoning, and there you have it. Dinner served. But here's the part nobody likes to talk about that quick. Steamy cup might be far more dangerous than it looks. The story of instant noodles started with good intentions. They were invented to feed starving people in post-war Japan, a simple way to get calories into empty stomachs. But that doesn't mean they were designed for long-term health. And decades later, the recipe hasn't exactly evolved into something better for you. Each serving packs around 300 to 500 calories, which sounds decent for the price. But what those calories come with is the real problem. Instant noodles are practically empty shells when it comes to nutrition, almost no fiber, barely any protein. And vitamins, forget it. They fill your stomach but starve your body, like tricking your car into running on fumes and calling it a full tank. And it's not just about what's missing, it's about what's hiding inside. Those little flavor packets are loaded with salt, preservatives, and sometimes additives you can barely pronounce. High sodium levels force your heart to work harder, raising blood pressure like tightening a belt around an engine until it eventually gives out. Some studies even link frequent instant noodle consumption to higher risks of metabolic syndrome, heart issues, and blood sugar spikes that leave your energy crashing soon after you finish. And here's a thought that might stick in your head the next time you're about to tear open a pack. Why does something that cooks in 3 minutes last months or even years on a shelf without rotting? What exactly are we eating that bacteria won't touch? Of course, tossing in some vegetables, an egg, or a bit of meat can make them slightly better. But that's like putting a bandage on a deep wound. Convenience foods are built to keep you coming back, not to keep you healthy. If you truly need a quick, cheap meal, try cooking a simple pot of rice with stir-fried vegetables or making a hearty soup with beans and greens. It might take a few extra minutes, but at least you'll be feeding your body something real, not just swallowing a salty illusion, because once you picture what's really swirling in that little cup, the thought of eating instant noodles night after night doesn't feel so comforting anymore, does it? Number 7, marshmallows and Jell-O. A campfire crackling under the stars, marshmallows melting into gooey perfection on a stick, or a colorful bowl of Jell-O wobbling at a summer picnic. Just thinking about it feels like stepping back into childhood. Doesn't it sweet, soft, and comforting? These treats seem innocent enough, almost like little bites of happiness. But here's the part that might make you stare twice at that fluffy marshmallow or that shiny cube of Jell-O. The very thing that gives them their famous bounce and chewiness is something you might never knowingly put in your mouth. The secret ingredient is gelatin. And no, it's not some harmless kitchen magic. Gelatin is made by boiling the hides and bones of pigs and cows, then drying that slurry and soaking it in strong acids or bases to strip out collagen, the same connective tissue that holds animals' bodies together. Once it's broken down, dried, and ground into a fine powder, it becomes the very thing that makes marshmallows soft and Jell-O jiggle. And despite what you might have heard, no, it's not made from animal hooves. But honestly, does that make it any less disturbing? Picture a pot bubbling with animal hides and bones, being broken apart until it's unrecognizable, only to end up as a sweet treat on your plate. And here's the strange irony: people love to talk about eating clean and healthy, yet no one blinks when dipping a marshmallow into hot cocoa or serving kids a rainbow cup of Jell-O. Would you still happily roast a marshmallow if the package said made from boiled animal hides and bones? Or would you pause before scooping Jell-O onto your plate at the next picnic? Imagining where that chewy wobble really comes from. Some brands have started experimenting with plant-based alternatives, but they're still rare, and most products on shelves stick to the traditional recipe. The truth is, these treats were never meant to be natural. They were engineered to be cheap, sweet, and addictive, because no one asks too many questions when something melts in your mouth and tastes like nostalgia. If you really crave that soft sweetness, you could look for marshmallows or gelatin-free desserts made with agar or other plant-based thickeners. They might not have the exact same texture, but at least you'll know you're not swallowing boiled-down scraps disguised as dessert. Because once you picture the real process behind that shiny, bouncy cube of Jell-O, it doesn't feel much like a childhood memory anymore. Does it? Number 8, Worcestershire sauce. That little brown bottle sitting quietly in your kitchen might look harmless, even a bit fancy, like the secret weapon that turns plain meat into something restaurant-worthy. A splash here, a drizzle there, it's the flavor booster everyone trusts. But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually swimming inside that bottle? Because once you know, you might hesitate before giving your steak or stew that perfect touch. The famous Leah and Parents brand has been making Worcestershire sauce since the 1830s, and the recipe hasn't changed much. Sure, it's got onions, molasses, and a mix of spices that sound harmless enough. But here's the kicker: the main ingredient is anchovies. And not just fresh anchovies tossed in for flavor. We're talking about anchovies that have been fermenting in vinegar for roughly 18 months. Picture that fish left to soak, break down, and bubble away in barrels for a year and a half before landing on your dinner plate. Does that still sound like the kind of secret you'd proudly drizzle over your burger? And the origin story doesn't exactly make it easier to swallow. The first batch of Worcestershire sauce was such a disaster that the chemists who created it shoved the barrels into a cellar and tried to forget about them. Months later, when they were ready to dump the failed experiment, they decided to taste it one last time, and surprise, it had mellowed into something delicious. But let's be honest, does that sound appetizing? Or does it sound like an accidental science project that just happened to taste good? Think about it this way. Some folks won't even touch a pizza with anchovies, yet they're unknowingly pouring this sauce over steaks, soups, and marinades without a second thought. Would you still use it so casually if the label spelled it out contains fish fermented for a year and a half? Or would you suddenly see that glossy brown liquid in a very different light if the thought makes you lose your appetite? There are plant-based and fish-free alternatives out there that mimic the same savory kick without the fermented fish stew. A mix of soy sauce, tamarind, and spices can get you close enough to the flavor without picturing barrels of anchovies slowly dissolving in vinegar. Because once you've imagined that process, every drop from that little bottle feels just a little harder to enjoy. Doesn't it? Number 9, jelly beans. They sit in candy bowls like little jewels, sparkling with every color of the rainbow, a cheerful sign of spring and Easter baskets. Popping one in your mouth feels like a bite of pure childhood sweet. Fun, harmless. But have you ever stopped to wonder what makes them so shiny, so irresistibly glossy? Because once you know, that innocent little bean may never look the same again. The secret to that smooth, polished finish is something called shellac. Sounds fancy, right? But here's the twist. It's the very same substance used to give wooden furniture that glossy, clear coat. The same stuff used to set jewels and even repair pottery. And no, that's not an exaggeration. It's the exact same material. Now, brace yourself for where it comes from. Shellac is made from the secretions of female lac bugs. These tiny insects feed on tree sap, then excrete a resin that hardens on tree bark. Workers scrape it off, process it, dissolve it in ethanol, and spray it onto everything from hardwood floors to your jelly beans. Picture that for a moment. A bug eats, secretes resin onto a tree, and that resin eventually ends up making your candy shine. Still craving a handful. And it's not just jelly beans, this same ingredient, often labeled as confectioner's glaze or by its technical name. E904 is used on all kinds of candies, so if you've been happily munching on that glossy candy shell, you've been eating bug secretions all along, whether you knew it or not. And here's the part that should really make you pause. Why do we need candy to look this shiny in the first place? Do we really eat with our eyes so much that we're willing to swallow the same stuff used on furniture just because it looks better? Would you still toss jelly beans into your mouth so casually if the bag said, coated with processed bug resin? Or would you start picturing the scraping, processing, and spraying before every bite if that thought lingers a little too long? There are alternatives. Some candies skip the shellac and use plant-based waxes, though they might look a bit duller. But maybe dull isn't such a bad thing when you think about what makes that shine. Because once you know the truth, every glossy jelly bean in that bowl seems to sparkle with just one unspoken question still feel like eating it. Number 10, enhanced chicken and packaged beef. That juicy chicken breast or bright red beef sitting neatly in the store might look tempting. But have you ever wondered why it looks so perfect? Labels with words like enhanced or brined aren't just marketing fluff. They're warnings you should take seriously. Meat processors commonly inject or plump chicken and beef with a saltwater solution, sometimes mixed with other additives, to make it appear fresher and juicier. But here's the catch. This trick can increase the weight of chicken by as much as 30%. Since grocery stores charge by weight, you're literally paying extra for salt water, not meat. Consumers are unknowingly spending around $2 billion every year just on this injected solution. And the sodium levels. That's another hidden punch. A 100-gram serving of treated beef can carry up to 1,800 milligrams of sodium, almost your entire daily limit in a few bites. Think about that the next time you cook dinner. Even worse, the beef you trust for taco night might be hiding another secret. Many stores use carbon monoxide in a process called modified atmosphere packaging to keep meat looking bright red, even when it's old. This gas doesn't stop spoilage, it just hides it. Some countries have banned the practice for a reason. So, how fresh do you think that perfect-looking steak really is? The truth about your food isn't pretty. Protect yourself. Question everything.
This video explains itself. I'm not going to say too much. Yeah. When you wake up to all this, you'll realize that everybody's been lied to for a long time. So leave a comment, subscribe. Let me know what's up. I know I'm disgusted by it. I've been for 6 years not eating the crap. Like, I have not drinking soda pop. Don't eat meat no more. I eat very little. I figure if you get hit by a little, it's better than getting hit by a lot. So until they fix all this crap, no, I ain't doing it. This explains a lot why people are so heavy. They're gaining weight like crazy. Back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, everybody was thin. It explains itself. It's quite evident. All right, see you.